Good morning, everyone. This is Ida of Created to Create. Welcome back to my channel. I I'm ready for. I hope you guys are ready for part 2 of the typewriter process video. I know some of you are creating them, and I do have to give you some more measurements that I didn't give you before, in case you're not doing it exactly the way that I am. If you're following the pattern, then I have to give you those dimensions. But the first thing I wanted to share with you guys is what I've been busy with, why I really haven't been recording that much. I've been trying to learn how to screen print along with Abby, and I wanted a t-shirt with my YouTube channel name. So this is what I came up with, and it's got created. And if you notice, with the cord of the glue gun is the 2 and create. What I wanted to do with my shirts that I designed for myself, I wanted scripture. I wanted to find a scripture that applies to someone who is creative, and I wanted that to be the inspiration for my shirt, because really that's what inspired me to change my channel name on YouTube. So I'm going to share with you the back of the shirt and what inspired me to change. Well, it was the Lord that inspired me, but here is the scripture. I hope that you guys can see it. It says, I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all kinds of craftsmanship. And that is Exodus 31:3. So I really like the fact that I have the scripture in the back, and it's like closer to my neck, but I want it in that area. I didn't want it really, really big, but I did want it somewhere on my shirt. So that's where I chose to have it. But all in all, I love the way my shirt looks. Right now, we're just playing around with the one color process, but later on, I want to get really creative and add different colors. But I wanted to share that with you guys of what I've been doing and what's been keeping me busy. So let's get started with the tutorial for the typewriter. Those of you who are following along with me and are using the pattern pieces, the side pieces to the typewriter, let me find it really quick, and are going by these dimensions, I'm going to go back to part 1, and I'm going to add some information in the description. If it's not there, just keep checking back because I'm going to be adding stuff to this one as well. But anyway, if you're following along with this and you're not with the size of the pattern that you printed out, and you're not going to adjust it anyway, make it taller or bigger or anything like that, and you're not going to, for example, mine, the first one I created, I did exactly to the dimensions on that would on her pattern. But when I printed them out, they didn't come out correctly, or on my end, but she did write the dimensions, so I was able to kind of figure things out. So if you're not going to do a drawer, like I edited and I altered it a little bit more, I added a drawer to mine. So if you're not going to do a drawer to your typewriter, you need a base for it. So all you need is a piece of chipboard, and I think I have the dimensions here for you. Let me find them. I thought I had everything separated, and I guess I do not. That is the keyboard. So as you can see, like mine printed out really, really big, but I'm so glad that she did put the other information on there. Okay, for the typewriter base, which is what's going to go underneath the typewriter, if you're not creating a drawer or a base or a type of platform for it, you're going to need something right here to go underneath. And if you're following along with the pattern, it's going to measure 4 3/4 by 5 3/4, and that is the bottom of the typewriter. If you are not going to add a base that you create or some type of drawer, you're going to need to cut one of these out, and you're going to cut one out of the foam board or chipboard. I would say chipboard, and then one out of your designer paper. I will add this to the first video in the description box. And then you're going to need for the front and the back of the box. Let me tell you what those sizes are, but I am going to post them as well. I mean, list them in the description box on part 1. And as you can see, mine just didn't print out correct. Okay, for the piece that goes, for this piece right here, I created a box. If you're not going to create a box, or even if you are going to create a box and do it my way, I'm still going to give you the dimensions that are going to fit the one you're using if you're doing the typewriter. So you're going to need it to measure 3 3/4 by 5. I don't have, let me measure really quick, make sure that that is about right. It doesn't sound right, but yeah, no, it's going to have to be taller than that because the piece to the typewriter is taller than that. So I'm going to put that in the description box for the box. If you're following along with this pattern, I'll actually figure it out and put it in the description box. Okay, so let's move on. Hopefully we can finish this without my phone cutting off. I already prepped for my, for what I'm going to share with you. And one of the things that you need to do, if you're following along with the pattern, you're going to need, you don't have to print out piece number 5. It's 3, 4, and 5. You don't need to print them out. All you need to write is the information because they're rectangles and you can cut it out of, you can cut it with a paper trimmer. Someone asked the question, what did I use to cut the foam board? All I use is one of these razor type of cutters, box cutters. So it can be any type of box cutter that will cut through, you know, and you want to use a sharp one. That way it cuts really smooth. But that's what I use to cut it, to cut my foam board. Anyway, you're going to need one piece that measures a 1/2 inch by 4 inches. And you're going to need 2 cut out of the foam board. And then you're going to need 1 out of your designer paper. So you're going to need that. And I'm going to list all this in the description box, but I want to share with you what I'm doing. And then you're going to need what's piece number 4, which is going to be a strip that measures 1 3/4 by 4 inches. Disregard whatever I wrote on there because I kind of adjusted it for me. But on her typewriter, she did it 1 3/4 by 8. So you're going to need the dimensions. If you can't wait for me to put them on there, just go to the link where I left the link to the pattern and get the information that is in piece 3, 4, and 5. So you're going to need that. And then you're also going to need, and I don't have these in any particular order. You're going to need the information that's on piece 19, 18. Okay, hold on. You're going to need the information that's on piece 16, 17, 18, and 19. And all it is are strips of paper. So you don't have to print this out. It's like piece number 19 is 1 inch by 9, and you're going to cut 10 of them. I will put this information, so if you don't get it from there, I will link it there, and I will put it under the description box in this video. And then I think that's all for now that I'm going to explain, and let's start working on the box. I did produce some of my, prepare for this, so I have my stuff already cut out. So for the base, for the back piece of your typewriter, if you adjust it like mine, then you're going to have to adjust the measurements. If you're going by the pattern, your piece is supposed to measure, what's on piece number 10, and it says 3 3/4 by 5 inch, and you're going to cut 1 from chipboard and 1 from poster board for the back piece, and then 1 from your designer paper. I kind of had to try and figure these out as best as I could. Okay, back piece. So, you know, for me, it's kind of, I couldn't make heads or tails of some of it, but I kind of figured it out. So I'm just going to put the information that hopefully will help you the best. How about that? So anyway, I pre-did mine. I already did the box to mine. Now I'm going to build the platform where the keys are, and I already pre-did my keys. And when I'm talking about if you're not going to build a platform or a base for your typewriter, I will share with you what I'm talking about, because I already recorded this, the drawer that I created for the typewriter. So this typewriter is actually going to sit on top of this base. I know it's pretty close, but that's as high as I can go with my phone. So this is going to sit on top of here. So I don't need a bottom piece for my typewriter, because I have the drawer where it's going to, the base where it's going to sit. But if you're not going to do that, then you're going to need a bottom piece. So I'm going to move this aside, and I'm going to put this together. And like I said, I already pre-did this, so I'm just going to try and explain to you how to do it. And I'm going to show you with this little piece. Now, you're going to need, for the back wall, you're going to need your piece that measures the exact same size as this back wall on your box, or front wall. This is the front, facing to the front. So you're going to need a piece of chipboard that measures that, and then you're going to need a piece of designer paper. And all we're going to do to this is we're going to glue it together. So let's do that. And if you are following the pattern, I will link in the description box the size of, this is going to be, I'm going to try and name it as clearly as I can, but this is going to be the back piece to the typewriter platform. So we're building the typewriter platform. So I'm going to glue this in place, and I can see where it's kind of difficult to name everything, because it is a little confusing. And all I'm going to do is glue this, and I should have glued this before, because you guys don't need to see me glue the piece, but I'm just sharing with you my process on how I do it. And I'm just using wet glue for this. I was going to clean out the tip. And let me tell you, I'm going to use for this project all of my, I want there to be a little border. I cut it pretty exact, so I'm not going to have a border. I used all of my paper from the Stamperia 12 by 12 paper pad, the whole thing. So all I did was glue this little piece in place, and I did cut out a couple things that were on the paper. And this is going to be, I'm building the back wall to the platform of my keys. And so you're going to see this, and this strip of paper where it had the wheel, it had this, the world is a wheel, and it will all come round right. So I'm going to add these here, but I am going to add foam to them. Let me grab a piece of foam. And I'm just going to use, I can use dimensional tape, but I think I'm just going to cut off just a couple pieces of this foam board I've been working with. And I'm going to glue the tickets to the back. Okay. And you can distress this further with some type of ink or and a little dauber or something, finger dauber, but I'm not going to do that to these. I hardly ever do that to my projects, to be quite honest, unless I want them to look really vintage. And so maybe I should have added a bigger piece. So this is actually going to stick out. And I could actually tuck flowers or whatever I wanted to in there, but I'm not going to. I think I would have preferred foam tape. Let me see if I can take this off and add foam tape to it, because I think this is, the foam board is too thick. Yeah. I'm just going to add foam tape because I feel like the foam board is too thick, and I do have some up here on my desk. somewhere amongst all my mess. Y'all know I'm really messy when I create. Okay, so I'm just going to add a couple of these are not even open yet. I think my friend Jackie sent me these. It had this tape on it. And I don't know if I'm staying in frame, guys. I'm trying to. But my phone is like above my head and I can't see into the screen. But all I am doing is adding foam board to my sentiment. That's going to go right there to both. I'm going to add foam tape to both. Now, if I want to add other things like flowers and other things, I'll do that afterwards. For right now, I just kind of want to put these in place. So I think I want that. You know what? I'm going to set them aside for a minute because I want to see how high up my keys are going to be before I do that. So anyway, you know, get something that has a nice sentiment that you want to show, because this is going to be the front of your typewriter, and you're going to be able to see not so much down here, but up here you'll be able to see the sentiment. So that's what we're doing there. Let me move that aside. Okay, for your base or the platform, set that aside. And for the platform for your typewriter, you're going to need, and I already gave you the dimensions, but I'll look for it again and give it to you again. And I will write it in the description box as well. I made a mess of my papers. Like this is really, for me it was kind of confusing because there was, the things weren't printing out correctly. If they had been, okay, if they had been printed out correctly, I would have not been so confused. But because this piece, it says 4 inches long and it's way almost the whole size of the page. Anyway, you're gonna need for the little space bar, a 1/2 inch by 4 inches if you're following the pattern. Then you're going to need, and you're going to need to cut 2 out of poster board, which I just showed you. It's the Dollar Tree poster board that I'm using. So you're going to need, it's not poster board, it's foam board. So you're going to need 2 from the foam board, 1 from the designer paper for the piece number 5, which is going to be the space bar. For piece number 4, you're going to need 3 out of foam board and 1 out of the designer paper, and it's going to be 1 3/4 by 4 if you're following along with the pattern. And the last one you're going to need is going to be 2 1/4 by 5. You're going to need 2 out of foam board and 1 out of the designer paper. Now right here it says wrap 6 inches, 6 by 16 inch graphic 45 paper strips. So that's going to be to wrap around your the perimeters of your, see, I used the craft colored paper because that's what I'm doing, but I really didn't need to measure or cut strips because all I did was just pretty much figured out the thickness of this and gave myself an extra 1/2 inch on either side and scored it. And when I got to the end of the corner, and I'm going to share that with you, I kind of just snipped it so it would turn the corner, but I'll share that with you. So anyway, you're going to glue the biggest pieces, which is piece number 5, I believe. Piece number 3. Piece number 3. You're going to glue the 2 pieces of foam together. You're going to cover up the edges any way you want to do it, by cutting either strips the way I did or wrapping the whole thing. And then you're going to cut 1 piece of designer paper I'm not going to give you the measurements on that because usually by the time you wrap it, it measures a little bit different. So take your ruler and measure this afterwards. I wanted you to be able to see the craft color because that's my color, underbase color that I'm using. So I'm just going to glue this on the top. I don't need to glue anything on the bottom because you're not going to see that. Mostly what you want to cover up are the sides and then the piece that goes on top. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. So all I'm doing here is just running out of glue, I think. Just adding glue to my piece. Come on, it's being stubborn. I was going to clean out the tip before I started my video and got sidetracked and didn't do it. Because I feel like it's starting to clog up. Like, you know, I'm having a hard time squeezing it out. So if you have any writing or anything, make sure it's facing the correct way. It really doesn't matter because you could rotate it. You could flip it around. But I think my words are in the right way. They're so tiny I can't really see them. Let me clean out the tip to my glue because I am having trouble squeezing it out. That should be good. So here's my base. What we're going to do with that one is we're going to glue, after we have everything stacked up, we're going to glue it to the back, to this piece that's going to be, and I want to call it back because it's the back of the platform, but it's the front of the typewriter. So that's why it's confusing. Anyway, we're going to glue it like this, like if we're building a little stage. So the next piece we're going to do is the piece number, I'll tell you right now. I think it's piece number 4. Yes. So the next one is piece number 4, and we needed 3 out of poster board and 1 out of the designer paper. You need to wrap around all the way around the edges, and then we're going to put a piece of designer paper on top. No need to cover the bottom because it's going to be glued up here. So that's what I'm going to do next. Just add glue to this and do the same thing, but that piece has 3 pieces of foam board instead of 2. And there's a reason for that, so make sure you do that. I love this typewriter. The lady that designed it did an awesome job, but for me it's a little hard to explain. But I hope that you guys are understanding, and I try to be as clear as possible, but sometimes I don't do such a good job. So now I'm going to add this piece again. Cut your piece after you've wrapped your paper. That way you can measure and you know more or less if you want the you know, an edge to show or if you don't. It's totally up to you. I want a little edge of the craft color that I'm using. So what we're going to do to this one, we're actually going to glue it on top of this one. And for this, I'm going to use this other glue because this little bottle takes forever. So I'm just going to take this glue. I'm going to add some to the bottom and I'm going to glue it on top. And I'm going to glue it all the way to the back. Make sure you got plenty of glue. You can use hot glue too if you want, but I don't typically use hot glue. So I'm going to glue this on top, and you want to center it and all the way to the back. So I use my my glass kind of to make sure everything's flush. I can see a little bit of the glue seeping out right here, and I don't want that. Just take I use this little pokey tool to clean it. So I made sure it was flush on the back, and about even spacing on either side. It might be a little bit off, but because I use that wet glue, I can actually adjust it. So there's that. That looks pretty good. So now we're going to do the little space bar. But before I do the space bar, I actually want to tell you or show you the keys. But you know what? Let me just go ahead and glue this. So we're going to take the two little strips, and that is the space bar, and yours should be cut at a 1/2 inch by 4 inches. And you're going to cut 2 out of foam board and 1 out of designer paper. So this center piece has the 3 layers plus the designer paper. The bottom piece only has 2 pieces of foam board and the designer, and the space bar only has 2 and the designer, because you want the space bar to be lower than the platform where the keys go. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this in place. And I didn't want to pre-cover this because I wanted to kind of share with you how, you know, some of us need a visual, and I might not be explaining things right, but if you see me do it, then hopefully you'll get it. This is hardly coming out. Okay, so I'm going to glue these two together. So even though my cut, as you can see, my second piece isn't very smooth, that doesn't matter because we're going to cover it up and you're not even going to see that. And I don't think I'm going to leave any craft color to show on this one. Actually, I can. Let's see. Yeah, no. I'm not gonna leave any craft color. I might come in afterwards and add a little strip all the way around. So I'm going to cover it with a piece of designer paper, and that's just a little strip I had left over. And I want you to be able to see the words because we're making a typewriter. So I'm just going to glue it here. I'm not going to tell you what size I need. I just got a scrap. That's all I did, just a scrap of paper. And I'm going to glue it down, and I'm going to wrap up this space bar. And if I decide I want a piece of the craft colored, I can just go and add a little thin strip, like 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch. Probably 1/4 of an inch one, because it's not very thick once you glue them together. You know, so I'm not following the directions the way she did them exactly. Make sure I have plenty. Give yourself enough room on the sides because, you know, this is pretty thick. It's not real thick, but it's maybe 3/8 of an inch thick, and you want to be able to wrap it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to train it the way we do when we're making mini albums. So I'm just going to fold it, kind of train my paper to do what I want it to do. This little piece I'm just going to trim off a little bit because I don't want it too bulky. So we're going to wrap this. Some of you are really good at wrapping. I am not, but I'll do the best that I can. So I hope that I'm in frame, and all I'm doing is training my paper to conform to the foam board that I'm using. So I'm going to glue the sides first, and then I'm going to do the ends. I think I'm just going to cut in here a little bit. I don't know if I want to do that, but I'm going to. So, but you wrap it the way you want to wrap it, or if you want to do the strip the way she did it. If that works for you, then do that. Whatever you want to do. So I'm going to use this glue because this one is having a lot of trouble coming out. And I just want to thin. It looks like I'm squeezing a lot, but I'm not. Just a little bit. And I'm just going to wrap it. If my piece would have been a little bit longer, that might have been better. But it's not, so I'm going to work with what I have. because I'm telling you guys, seriously, I have hardly anything left of the paper pad. It doesn't want to adhere to the foam. Just take your time. Like a lot of times when I'm doing a video, I have to go back afterwards. After I'm done with my video, I do have to go back and tidy things up, because when you're doing a tutorial, you don't want it to be very long. Therefore, you know, kind of skimp on making sure everything's glued down and taking your time and doing it right. That's one of the things that I don't care for as far as a tutorial goes, because I don't want to make them very long. Okay, so I got one side glued down. Now I'm going to glue down this other side, and I am going to add some more of the wet glue because I think it'll do a better job than that fabric or tacky glue. It wasn't very tacky. I have tons of these bottles, but I don't really like to waste, so I'm going to probably take the lid off and run some hot water in it, get all the gunk out of it. Okay, so now I'm going to hopefully close the other side. And this paper's pretty thick. I imagine if you're using a thinner paper, might be easier, but when you commit to a paper, then you got to stick with it if you want good results. And I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure it's adhering all the way down, and run it down the sides to kind of make it nice and give it that nice sharp corners. See that nice sharp corner right there? When you do that with the bone folder, it gives it that nice edge. Okay, now it's time to do the bottom, but I want to cut off the extra. I think I'm going to go in at an angle a little bit. And do the same on this one. I'm going to go in at an angle. And I'm going to tuck in right here. Make sure these are glued down, and just tuck in right here a little bit. Tuck everything in, make sure everything is nice and neat. Like, I don't feel I need all this paper, but we'll see. And I'm tucking these in as well, because I want it to be nice and neat. Like a nice little wrap. And I'm going to go in and trim off the extra paper. I really don't like the way that's looking, to be quite honest. So I'm going to take off more. It wants to curl right here, and I don't want it to curl. And I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to take off these pieces completely. I don't want it to be bulky. I don't want it to cause it to get a funny shape. So I'm just going to tuck it in. Yep. So there it is. I am gonna go back with my bone folder and see how it wants to pucker there. I don't like that, so I gotta make sure that it's nice and adhered. Maybe I should have waited and did the bigger one that way, you guys could see. The other way to wrap it is actually better, but I didn't do it that way because it's so small, so narrow. The length is not small, but it's so narrow. It would have been difficult. And I'm trying to show you an easy way, which probably isn't so easy. So I'm going to tuck this behind here. all I'm doing with my bone folder is I'm squaring it, making sure that it's got that nice square shape. I don't want it to be rounded. I want it to be square. So that's all I'm doing, just fixing it so it has nice sharp corners. So this was a little time consuming, so now let's do the other side. But see how nice the corners look? And this could use a little bit more work. But for now, I'm just going to leave it. So again, I'm going to trim off this piece. And I'm going to go in at an angle. I think that's better. And I just kind of tuck those corners in. You want to tuck the corners in of your paper. Let me add some glue there. I'm going to add plenty of this glue in there. So I'm going to tuck in the corners. As you can see, they're tucked in, just like you would wrap, for those of you that make the mini albums, just the way you would wrap that. Now this is still too wide for me, so I'm going to cut it off, because you're not going to see this. This is actually going to be underneath. And I'm going to add glue. Gosh, I feel like this little piece took forever. There it is. Clean off my workspace. So now I'm going to go in with my bone folder, make sure it's nice and flat and sharp, the corners. And take your time to do a good job, because especially if you're gifting it to someone, sometimes I tend to cut corners for myself, but I don't like to cut corners when I'm creating for somebody else. I try not to, I really do. And I'm just going to burnish it to get that sharp little space bar right here. Now if you wanted to do a rounded corner space bar, you could, but I don't want to. So now we're going to take this little space bar, and that's going to get glued right there on the very edge. It should be flush. Should be flush. See how it's flush right there with your base. So this piece and this little piece are equivalent to the size of your bigger piece. And we're going to glue that up there. Oh, I added too much glue there. Don't want to do that. If you add too much glue, you kind of want to wipe it off before you actually put it on there. That way you're not cleaning up so much. There. Let me wipe this off of me. My paper has writing on it, so I want to make sure that the writing is, I can read it. When the recipient gets it and it's upside down, that means that I need new glasses. So we're going to center this to this platform on top. Oh, I need to glue one more.